Spartans, this is Miss Waller, principal at West Elementary School. I'm going to be reading chapters 52 through 58. Chapter 52, Diva of Dogtown. Most of the humans who came to Dogtown wanted a little dog. Only a few were looking for a big dog, especially a 220-pounder like Geraldine. Nobody wanted an old dog either. Old dogs had big vet bills. They were set in their ways, and they didn't have long to live. If they got a puppy, they'd have him for 10, 12, 15 years. If they got an old dog, it might only be 1 or 2. But Metalhead's idea was the only one we had, so I threw my heart into making it work. Getting all the dogs on board would be a tall order. Every dog woke up in the morning dreaming of being chosen. Nobody wanted to give up that chance. I started with Geraldine's best buddies. Trooper, the Mastiff, was all in before I even got the question out. I wasn't surprised. We all suspected Trooper had a thing for Geraldine. Soon, all the big dogs had signed on. The reception was surprisingly good with the medium-sized dogs, too. They looked up to the big dogs. Everybody said yes until I got to Dasha, the diva of Dogtown. Dasha, an Irish setter, had been a show dog once. She spent most of her day grooming herself and telling anyone who would listen about the time she got second place in her category. When I explained the plan to Dasha, she said, "Who?" "Geraldine," I said, "the St. Bernard in 22. "Oh, her, yes. She says I'm beautiful," Dasha said. Dasha was like a foxtail in your ear. All she could talk about was Dasha. I was about to go on a rant about how the whole world didn't revolve around her when Mouse whapped me with his tail. He bugged his eyes out at me, and I held my bark. Instead, I said, "Of course she did. We all do." It was true. Dasha was stunning. No one could figure out why she hadn't been adopted. Even so, there's nothing more difficult than giving a dog a sincere compliment when you want to take a bite out of her leg. "Does she?" Dasha asked. Mouse's tail continued to hit my leg, so I nodded. "If there was a best of Dogtown, you'd win," I said. Dasha's ears perked up. "You think so?" "I do," I said. "Is there a best of Dogtown trophy?" she asked. She was in her dog show stance. Back straight, ears perked, tail straight out. Mouse wrapped his tail around my leg and pulled it so tightly it squeezed the blood out of my only front paw. "Not yet," I said. "Oh," she said. "So what about tomorrow?" I asked. "Tomorrow, yes. You know, I've noticed the hair on my hind legs could use a trim. I should get that taken care of before the best of Dogtown competition," Dasha said, licking her back leg. "Thank you for helping out Geraldine," I managed to say before Mouse's tail yanked me out of there. Chapter 53, A Love Fest. By the time we opened the next day, everyone had agreed to the tail out. Now we just needed one human to fall in love with Geraldine. The first family who came in was only interested in e-dogs. Since the robot dogs had not been charged, the family decided to come back another day. Next, a big, lumbering man with muscular arms bulging out of a black leather vest strode in. He had a scar on his lip and a nose that looked like it had been broken a few times. He was drinking a soda, and when he was done, he crushed the can into a tiny ball in his fist. But when he saw Bear, curled up and sleeping, the man's scary face melted, and I saw the little boy he had once been. "Why, hello, little one," he clapped his hands, his scarred face as gentle as could be. When Bear didn't respond, the man's massive shoulders slumped and his eyes got watery. At Dasha's pen, the big man whistled. "What a beauty." Dasha, being Dasha, could not resist a compliment. At first, she preened for him, then remembered what she'd promised and turned tail out. The big man waited for her to turn around. When she didn't, he moved on. the chains around his massive boots clinking with every step. Trooper, who still had on his reading buddy sweater, was doing very well ignoring the man. "Here, boy." The man wiggled his big hand into the pocket of his black leather pants and pulled out a dog biscuit. Trooper's nose twitched. Drool dripped from his mouth. "Come on, fella, I'm not going to hurt you," the man said. Trooper stared at the biscuit, transfixed. Then his eyes moved to Geraldine, and he set his chin down in his pool of drool and did not get up. The man's face grew long, his step slow, his great shoulders sagged. I worried he was going to leave before he even got to Geraldine, but he kept walking. Oh, how he smiled when he saw her, his eyes shining with kindness. "Why, hello, Geraldine," he said, reading from the whiteboard sign. A volunteer brought Geraldine out, and she wagged her tail and nuzzled him. "Aren't you a sweetheart?" he said, petting her head. He watched her do her tricks. He scratched behind her ear and under her chin and gave her a belly rub. It was a love fest. He was there for the better part of an hour. Geraldine had found a home. Chapter 54, The Motorcycle. Then, suddenly, I heard the sound of a motorcycle starting up. Uh-oh, you could not take Geraldine home on a motorcycle. She simply wouldn't fit. Maybe he had a car at home. Maybe he had a friend with a car. Maybe he would come back wearing hiking boots and walk her home. But as 2 o'clock became 3 and then 4, my stomach began to hurt. If he came back tomorrow, it would be too late. Chapter 55, When I Was a Kid. By this time, the dogs were getting antsy. They'd given up their chances for a home, and it hadn't helped Geraldine. They were ready to abandon the plan. I didn't blame them, but I wasn't going to give up on Geraldine. We had to at least give her one entire day. As the minutes ticked by, I did what I could to hold the coalition together. The clock said 4:15. A rush of humans came in and then left. 4:30, 4:35, 4:45. Border Collies are good with numbers. Some of us can even tell time. And I have a lot of Border Collie in me. But on that day, I wished I didn't know what those numbers meant. Dogtown closed at 5 o'clock. Even if someone wanted Geraldine, there'd be no time to get the paperwork done. I sat down next to her, wondering what to say. Geraldine spoke first. "You've got a big old heart, Chance," she whispered in her deep voice, her big black nose near my ear. "You gave this your all, dog. First thing I do when I get to doggy heaven, I'm going to snag one of them cloud beds for me and the other I'll save for you. We'll see each other again, dog. You bet we will." I tried to breathe, but the air wouldn't go in and it wouldn't go out. I had so many feelings welled up in my chest, I almost didn't hear the commotion by the front desk. It sounded like more folks had arrived. I hopped over to check it out. "I'm sorry, we're about to close," front desk announced. All the people turned around. It was all I could do to keep from nipping front desk's ankles. Didn't she realize this was Geraldine's last day? And then, suddenly, a tiny woman in a baseball cap came through the door. She had a great mass of curly gray hair and a big smile set into soft, wrinkled cheeks. By her side was a small boy with a half hop to his step. "I'm sorry," front desk hurried her to the door. "We won't be long," the grandma said, plowing by front desk. I liked this little lady's attitude. Grandma types generally head for the small dog pens, but not this one. She and the boy walked by the poodles and Pomeranians as if they didn't exist, and then past the medium-sized dogs, the bulldogs and the beagles. They walked by all of them until they got to Geraldine. Geraldine was tired. She'd done her Adopt Me routine more times than we could count that day. I could hear her knees crack when she stood up. The grandma opened Geraldine's pen door, and when she leaned down to pet Geraldine, I couldn't tell whose knees were groaning, the woman's or Geraldine's. Then the tiny lady said the words that every dog in Dogtown knew were magic. I had a St. Bernard when I was a kid. Best dog I ever had. Chapter 56, Last Minutes. There wasn't time for Geraldine to do her routine, so she gave the little boy a big sloppy lick and nuzzled his leg. Then she leaned ever so gently against the gray-haired lady. Soon, front desk was on the scene. "I'm sorry, ma'am. Dogtown is closed," she said. "This is the dog we want, this Geraldine," the grandma declared, as if she hadn't heard a word front desk had said. The little boy gave an oversized nod. Then he buried his face in Geraldine's thick fur. "We are not leaving unless she comes with us," the grandma declared. Front desk's eyebrows shot up. Her jaw turned hard and her hands flew to her hips. "Excuse me, ma'am." The tiny woman, who was twice the age of front desk, strode closer and closer until she was right up in front desk's face. "This dog needs a home," she said. Front desk stepped back. She was no match for this woman, who could have been a bouncer, and that's how tough she was. What was front desk going to do? Call the police on a tiny gray-haired woman who wanted to give a home to a dog in the last minutes of her last day on Earth? Front desk came to her senses. Soon she was bent over the paperwork, and I was saying goodbye to our beloved Geraldine. "Oh, Chance, you hold it together now, dog. I found me a home," Geraldine whispered, "and you will too." Then all of us at Dogtown began to howl as we watched Geraldine lumber out of Dogtown with her forever family. Chapter 57, Group Wag. We celebrated big time that night. We danced and pranced and staged a group wag like the likes of which had never been seen. Long and lovely, short and stubby, bushy and bobbed, curly and corkscrew, every dog in Dogtown wagged her tail at the same time. Our hearts were bursting. We'd done our part to help our sweet Geraldine find her forever home. "Your heart is a muscle," I told Mouse at dinner that night. "It grows stronger the more you use it." Metalhead stuck his nose through the fence. "I'm planning on leaving tomorrow," he announced. He didn't care to discuss matters of the heart. He was just concerned that I would keep up my end of the deal. "I'll bring the leash first thing in the morning," I said. Chapter 58, Escape. I always make good on my promises. That may be my Aussie side. We're very responsible. So I got up with the first train whistle, hopped behind the counter, picked out a tiny dog leash, and made my way down to the basement. When I arrived, Mouse was waiting. "Where are you going?" I asked Metalhead as I pushed the leash through the chain link. "Home," he said. Mouse slipped the handle over his shoulder and began climbing up to the latch. "How are you planning to get out of Dogtown?" "I thought you and the little guy would create a distraction. Then I'll sneak out the front door." I hadn't planned on helping Metalhead with anything beyond getting out of the basement, and I certainly wasn't going to put Mouse in jeopardy. He was more vulnerable than we were. If a human saw him, they'd set a mouse trap, put poison out, or call in the cats. I shook my head. Too risky. "Front desk likes you. Just go lick her foot," Metalhead suggested as Mouse hooked the leash on the latch and dropped the length down. Metalhead grabbed the leash with his steel teeth and pulled. The latch clicked open, and Metalhead was out.